All right, and we're pleased to be joined now on episode 12 of the Jets Group Chat podcast. We have a very special guest with us, Coach Mike Westhoff, one of the most legendary special teams coaches in NFL history. You'll obviously know him if you're listening from his very successful tenure here with the Jets for 11 years here and a lot of successful Jets teams throughout the year. Really the glory years of the last probably 20-25 years. It's there's been some lean time since Coach left, but Coach, just how's retirement treating you? You have this new book figured out now that's available everywhere books are sold.
It's kept me pretty busy. Yeah, I retired after 12 years, by the way, with the Jets.
12 years, okay.
In 2012, and then I went to work in the media with ESPN and SNY Television. And then out of nowhere in 2017, the New Orleans Saints talked me back in, and I went to work for them for a couple of years, which I really enjoyed. And then since then that was enough for me. I had enough, and then I decided that I would write the book. So that took me, I don't know, 2.5 years maybe. That was how I spent my how I spent the pandemic vacation.
Okay,
that's what I did. I wrote the book. And then, of course, it's been published, and now it's a matter of me communicating and promoting it and those types of things. So it keeps me pretty busy. It really does.
So that's something when you're on the sidelines coaching and you kind of get a sense when maybe your time is coming to an end and you're going to walk away and do something else. Did you ever have that thought in your head while you were actively coaching that maybe a book would be in your future?
Oh, well, two things. First, I never had that thought in my head when I was on the field. Never.
Okay.
Never. Now, I knew, as time would go on that I was 65 years old. I had done it for a long time. And, you wear out a little bit. But more than that, what drove me away was the radical changes that took place in the National Football League in the part of the game that I believed I helped rise to a pinnacle where it had never been. And trust me, guys, it's never going again, because it's been so dramatic, so dramatically changed. And all of a sudden I looked around and I thought, Mike, what the hell are you going to do? Because this stuff that I coached all these years, most of it's illegal now. You can't, There's so many things you just couldn't do. And it took away from what I really loved. I loved the innovation. I loved coming up with a new return every week. I love being able to do that. And all of a sudden I can't do it. You just don't have the plays. I used to like to draw and design kickoff coverage. Well, now, kickoff coverage, everybody's lined up one foot back from the line, and everybody's 5'5". And, to me, it's like, it's just minuscule compared to what I used to do. So
it's a different game.
Different game is right, Gerald. Thank you. That discouraged me. And I didn't want to, when it really hit me, it took away what I believed were some opportunities to help win. I'll give you an exact example. I can make it very specific. You guys remember back in 2009 when we went to the championship game that year. Or maybe it was 2010 when we played. It was one of those 2 years. Okay. Anyway, the year we went to Indianapolis and we beat the Colts. Mm-hmm. It was like Peyton Manning's last game. Okay. Now in that game, it's a good game, back and forth, and then they drive down the field at the end and they score. So they're up by 2 points, or a point, maybe, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And so they have to kick off to us. And we had very little time left, maybe a minute. And I thought to myself, I know this guy's going to do, he's going to try to blast it out for a touchback. When he does that, he hooks the ball a little bit, so he'll kick it to our right. Brad Smith had gotten hurt, and I put in Antonio Cromartie. Mm-hmm. So Cromartie, first time he had run one in the whole year, first time. So I talked to him in the huddle. I said, look, I'm going to run this Miami right. We're going to double team the 5. I'll put 2 guys like a double wedge type thing. I said, just read the inside blocker. I said, line up 5 deep. And unless it goes over your head, run it out. Okay. So he does. And he runs the ball up to about the 50-yard line. Mm-hmm. We complete one pass. We kick a field goal and we win the game and go to the next level of the playoffs. And we end up in a championship game. If the rules were the way they are today, that ball would be a touchback and we would never have had a chance. because
Wow.
we'd have got the ball in the 25 with hardly any time left, and we wouldn't have had time to move it down and score, and we wouldn't have won the football game. I like the opportunity to make a difference. And when I saw those things being taken away, I wanted out.
It's interesting to hear that, Coach. It really is to hear, the thought that goes behind that. Something for special teams, because as a viewer, we're watching. You figure, oh, they're putting Camardi in. He's our best athlete, just trying to make a play. But for you to know that he hooks the ball to the left, we know we're going to do this. If it sails, this is what he's going to try to do. Blast it. The thought that goes on behind that is just astonishing, and it's just I love kind of hearing. I love hearing that.
It's helped us win the football. I believed that that I helped take that part of the game from a point of relative obscurity to one of kind of prominence, where we could make plays to help win the football game, and we could make a difference. And as I saw that get less and less and less, then my interest waned, to say the very least.
Yeah, and it's quite apparent how much special teams made a difference for all those different Jets teams that when you were there, when they were going to the playoffs and there was successful teams. You could look back, and I could think of a handful just where special teams made a difference in all those games, whether it was a Brad Smith run back or Joe McKnight running those kicks back. It's just, you could pinpoint different moments in every game where if those one or two special teams plays doesn't happen, maybe that's one or two less wins that those teams have, and maybe that's the difference in making the playoffs or having home field advantage to not making it at all.
I firmly believe it. I firmly believe it. We were a tight squeak to get into playoffs almost every year, but we got in them. My first 10 years, we were in them 60% of the time, and we were a good football team. But we fought our way in, and it wasn't like we were running away with things, but we were a good enough team, and when all cylinders were working. But I firmly believe that if we had not been such a viable contributor, that we wouldn't have gotten the playoffs even one time those years I was there. I don't believe we'd have gotten in once if we didn't help make a difference and win a game or two, whatever it took along the line that made a difference to us getting in. I firmly believe that.
Awesome. Speaking of success, Coach, and you've been around some prolific Jets coaches, Herm Edwards, Mangini, Rex, spanning different eras. Which one would you say, in your view, was the most successful in your eyes?
Rex, by far.
Rex? Why is that?
Definitely. Well, first of all, Rex walked into a pretty good situation. He really did, which by the way, Eric Mangini actually helped him. So some of the things that Eric did were really pretty good. He had a good feel for personnel and putting some things together. We drafted well. We really did. He made one crucial mistake, I think, in drafting Vernon. That just didn't work out for him. But there were a lot of good picks. So Rex walked in to a pretty good football team, and he kept a good group of coaches. I mean, remember they had the lockout that one year, and John Gruden came out and was, when he was doing television, and visited our staff because we were bringing guys in and having clinics. And John was supposed to stay for 2 days. He stayed for 6. And he told me one time, he said, "This is the best NFL coaching staff I've ever seen." I remember, you had Anthony Lynn, who went on to a head coach. Bill Callahan was the offensive line coach. Mike Pettin was the coordinator. Bob Sutton, myself, Ben Kotwika. I mean, these guys were pretty good. We had a good group, and we had a good group of players. We were a certain type of team, and I personally liked that team. Now, I think what people don't realize, and frankly, to be real honest and being a little tiny bit critical, I don't think he quite realized it either. Herman Edwards walked into a good football team. Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick, they know how to put a team together. That was a good team. Now, salary cap wise, it was starting to stretch, and it wasn't going to last forever. But that team that I came up to in 2001 was a good ball club. I mean, we had you had Curtis Martin. Of course, you still had Vinny Testaverde. When if we'd have left him in the shotgun, he might still be playing today instead of putting him under center like Paul did. And then, of course, Pennington came along, and but that was a good group. It was a good team. So he inherited, I think, a better football team than he actually knew. And then Eric came along and got it going, and then it kind of fell apart. But then he got it going again. But then I think he must have, I don't know, maybe stepped on too many toes. I'm really not sure what happened. I wrote in the book that I didn't believe he should have been fired. And I still believe that. I feel that. But that happened. And then Rex takes over a pretty good team. But I kind of liked Rex's philosophy. It was kind of more in tune to what I had. I liked being able to control the clock and to run the football, to be able to do that and play good defense. And I had a great group that had a chance to win every week. So that football team was special to me. How it disintegrated is sickening to me. That was one of the toughest things I experienced in my coaching career. That I was really disappointed in that, because that group was fun to be around. They were fun to be around. Great guys, good people, no off the field issues, guys that worked hard in practice. They were tough. I mean, nobody wanted to play us. We were tough. We were tough guys, and it was fun. So
Just those days.
If I have to pick it, it would be that group with Rex. That was a fun group to be a part of.
Coach, you just kind of alluded to it, and we're talking to Coach Mike Westhoff here, who just released his book, Figure It Out, available everywhere books are sold now. Highly encourage you to pick it up because it's jam packed with stories. But Coach, going back to what you just said, that Rex era and you being sick about the way it ended, what do you think brought that about? Just mismanaging the cap, or maybe just kind of going away from what worked and trying to get too cute with things? Why do you think that kind of era, or that run, if you will, ended so abruptly and just kind of?
I think those two reasons that you gave are the exact two reasons I would give. Exactly, I agree with you totally. For the mismanage of the cap, I think that started. Sometimes you can't keep everybody together. I understand that. I know that's a tough job, but you hate. I think we lost 14 guys. That there's no excuse for that. You have to handle that betterly than you did. We gave Mark Sanchez the big the big contract. I remember asking Mike one time, Tannenbaum's my office, and I was fuming over it because of the fact that I lost so many guys. And I said, Mike, why did we do this? And he told me, he said, this is what a championship game, which we were in, quarterback has to be paid. And I said, well, if he had much to do with us getting there, I'd completely agree with you. I said, he was on the bus. He sure as hell wasn't driving the bus. And I liked some of the things that Mark did. Don't get me wrong. I think he was a good man for what we were doing. Was he the elite guy? No, he was not. But for the type of team we had, he was very, very manageable. But, all of a sudden, then that takes the big chunk. Then we're going to bring in Tim Tebow, which in some ways I kind of liked, if we had ever utilized it the way we said we would, which I did. I did my share. No one else did. So the rest of them, shame on them. And then we just started to lose too many guys. We just started losing. All of a sudden, Alan Faneca is headed out the door, and we're bringing in Plexico Burress. I mean, help me why anybody thinks those are good moves. That stuff just go ahead.
It's funny. It's funny to hear it. It's going to stick in my mind for a long time now. You summoned the GM to your office. You didn't go and knock on his door and say, "Hey, can I check?" You said, "Come to me."
That's not really fair to say. He just happened to come by. Nobody used to like to come to my office. No,
only Mike
Westhoff. I didn't summon him. No, that's really not true. That's not fair to say. But it was in my office where the conversation took place. And no, those guys, I used to. Yeah. I think they were happy when I retired. I had
the fans weren't. We loved you, Coach.
I could get pretty tough on them sometimes. I used to have a sign in my office that said, let me get it exact. Yeah, exactly. And I had this in my office too. It said, that I know that you don't know. They used to hate that. They used to. You're going to read the sign. Though I could be pretty cocky, and I just loved it. I loved what we put together. I loved being in New York. I had a ball. I liked the Jets. It was fun. The stadium to come out was just exciting. It just knocked your socks off. The fans were great. I loved to go into the city. People were great. It was fun. And we were the kind of the perfect team for that fan group. We had that good offensive line. LaDainian Tomlinson running the football, and Thomas Jones, and of course Darrelle Revis and those guys on defense. And it was just a fun team to be a part of, and to see it get dwindled apart. Oh my goodness gracious! I wrote a lot about it, so I wrote a lot about it. It was very, very difficult. I know Woody Johnson, when he knew I was going to leave, called me and had me come down to his office. He has an office down in Manhattan, down by Rockefeller Plaza, and I went down. And he just tried to talk. He said, I don't want you to go. I want you to stay. And I said, Woody, I said, I'm so frustrated. I
Yeah.
said, I've got two choices where places where I'm going to live next year. I said, I'm going to live in my home in Florida, or I'm going to be in Rikers because I'm going to kill somebody at that office.
Well, we're glad to have you down in Florida and not
I
in
said,
Rikers,
so I
Coach.
think I'm, I'm teasing, of course, but that's exactly what I told him.
Mhm.
I said, it's time for me to go home. Woody, it's just time. I don't want to deal with it anymore.
Speaking of when the Jets used to be, to be fun and fun to watch, you've been around the Jets a lot this summer. If you went to visit, you went to camp.
Yeah.
What's your impressions of the direction they're going now? The new coaching staff, the players, the corporate team we have in there now. Like, are we heading in the right direction? Is
Closest,
there
I'll be
optimism?
honest with you, I can't totally answer it because I don't see them every day. And I'd be anxious to see them get started. But it's the closest that I've seen them headed in what I believe is the correct direction that I've seen in maybe almost 10 years.
Wow.
This group, I'm not, I'm not putting them in the Super Bowl. I'm not putting them in the playoffs, but I'm a fan and I'm a little bit excited. I see some good things. I like the coach. I like his attitude. I like I watched I watched the practice. I was very impressed. It was a good looking NFL practice. I liked it. There's a lot of things that have to happen and they've got a long way to go, but there's some good things. I remember a couple years ago, I don't know, maybe it was 4 years ago, something like that. I was watching a game on television. I thought to myself, I'm not sure that I see five guys out here that could have made our good teams. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
I really felt that way. I'm trying to say, could that tackle have made it over our guy? Nope. Well, how about the tight end? Nope. Well, how about that corner? Well, you kidding me? That's Revis. Forget it. You see what I'm getting at? I mean, I started doing that watching because when you're a coach, you look at things, practice games with like glasses on, but
Always
they're
evaluating.
coaching glasses and they don't come off. And that's what I see. I want to see that. When I used to evaluate my personnel groups, I used to have a sheet in front of me, like with a punt team. And I'd put it up and I had our opponents right next to me. And I used to say to myself, okay, Mike, which one, how are you going to, you get your pick. So let's make some trades. You want your guy or do you want their guy? I'm going to tell you what, when I used to go through, only a couple of their guys did I ever want. If I ever wanted, then I knew I might take two, maybe a couple, but that's it. I didn't want most of them. I knew we could beat them. And I love that feeling. And so to me, the Jets are a long ways from that. But I think they're moving in the right direction. So I'm really hoping they can put it together. I kind of, the quarterback thing interests me. I kind of like the fact that Flacco's going to be the guy. That I think that Wilson, he's going to be okay. He'll bounce back. But it's not a terrible thing for a young guy to sit there and watch a little bit. So I think I liked what I saw. I'm a little disappointed because it happened right after I left up there. But when the tackle got hurt, the big offensive guy, I was anxious to see how he was going to come along.
Likewise.
And I was really, because they were talking about moving him to the right side, and that would have been interesting to me. But I like the way their defense flew around. Can they get to the passer enough? I don't have an answer there. But are they going to run the ball as good as you should? I like some of their running backs. So I don't know. I have a realm of confidence a little bit, and it's going to be exciting. Plus, I don't know. Look around. New England doesn't scare me like they used to scare me. They just don't.
Sure.
I was down at Miami for their practice, and Miami's got some good talent. But come on, I mean, it's just I don't know. They don't. I think Buffalo's legit. They're the real deal.
Oh yeah.
So they're for real. But I don't know. I kind of think if the Jets just pull together and hang tough and get some things, feel strong about yourselves. I don't know. I'm rooting for them, and I think they're better than they've been. So I'm really hoping.
That's good.
Coach, just going back to your tenure with the team, and I think it kind of embodies the title of your book, Figure It Out, but it just seemed like no matter who was there, I'm just going to the return element of the game, but no matter who you had on the roster, guys like Chad Morton or Justin Miller or McKnight or Brad Smith, you always seem to turn these guys into like Pro Bowl, all pro type returners. And what is it about that element of that game that you just always seem to be able to identify the traits needed to do that job successfully, or
It's
to
it's a
figure that
combination
out?
of things. You bring up a good point, because it is a matter of picking certain traits, but at the same time, I think you have to put together a package that emphasizes and expounds upon those traits. So you want to get guys, what can they do? Okay, well, you got to do this a little bit differently. And I love the creative atmosphere of what, when I was at the Jets, my years there, we had nine different players that led the National Football League in returns. Well, nobody's touching that record. Nobody's going to get it. You don't have any returns anymore, number one. And
Yeah.
that helps. But, we had, these guys were good, and with things we did were good. Everybody stole them. I steal things, and they stole from me. Of course, they stole more from me than I did from them. But I think that's the secret, being able to figure it out. Okay, what can this guy do? I remember remember we used to have Justin Miller.
Yep.
And he led the league, and he was a Pro Bowl type guy. I have to shut this off. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. No worries at all, Coach.
It's Woody Johnson. He wants you back again.
No. It just was, Justin had a certain style. So all of a sudden, he got banged up, and now I've got Leon Washington, and I'm running things early, and I thought, this just doesn't even look the same. Something's not right. And then I realized, okay, Leon's a running back. All right. And he's used to running right up behind the line. Justin is the defensive back that can really run. Mm-hmm. So I used to set a wedge type thing with Justin, or lead blockers, however you want to call it. With Justin, anywhere from 12 to maybe even 14 yards in front of him, because he used to like to catch them. Mm-hmm. With Leon, I moved it to 5, because Leon used to like to hide behind him, and then bam, he'd explode through. So sometimes you have to be able to create and figure out what's going to work for those guys. That's the kind of thing that you have to do. And I think I worked hard at that, and I figured out a system of how to do it. So, like I would, real early in my career, I realized there wasn't a lot of innovation in special teams back in 1982. But more importantly, probably, there wasn't much regulation, so I could try everything. And then also, if I learned that if I was smart and used my time correctly, I pretty much had a timeout before every play. So I used to draw everything, and I got good at it. I drew very great drawings. They're good. I could show them to you, and they're easy to read. And so instead of having 3 kickoff returns, I'd have 12. Wow. So I could get in a huddle, and I could say, all right, Gerald, remember now, this time you're going to da-da-da-da-da. And you never made a mistake. You didn't make a mistake, because you only had to remember it from here to there. So right. We just did more than anyone else. We ran way more plays.
The extra mile. Yep.
And it worked. It worked. And no one knew what the heck was coming, because like guys used to say, like playing against Mike's like playing against a new team every week. Well, yeah, you're right. That's exactly what it's like, because I'm going to change every week. and I figured out how to do that. And that gave these guys a chance to do the things that they could do the best. That's what I think that we did a nice job of.
Do you find it hard now to, like, obviously we're probably all going to watch this first game of the season tonight. Do you find it hard to watch it in terms of you're so dialed in, and special teams was always your first love, your passion? You alluded to how it's kind of diminished and almost a non-existent element of the game. Do you find it hard to like enjoy watching, having seen where special teams has gone?
No, I still enjoy it, because I just like the game for what it is, but I do miss that part. I do miss it. And I think it's such a shame that you just don't have, like you kick off. And I used to love to see a kickoff coverage where guys were running and moving, and kind of like blitzing is what I did. I designed my coverage after blitzing, with the perimeters of blitzing. And now it's just so rote, and you run down the field. I'm 74. I could run down tonight and cover one tonight. It might take me a little way. I have to do a timeout, probably not 3 commercials, but I could get there. And that's what I don't like. Plays. I'll give you the exact number. I'll give you a good number. My first 30 years in the NFL, okay, not counting PATs and field goals, whether you kick them or defend them, not counting those plays, I averaged 22 plays a game, 22. punts, punt return, kickoff. So in other words, I'm not talking kickoff touchback. We used to have to cover every kick. I
Sure.
averaged 22. When I went to the Saints, 2017 for 2 years, 7.
Wow.
My number dropped from 22 to 7.
Wow.
Because now you have so many touchbacks. You didn't have the number of punts. You take some punt plays away because you start the ball to 25. It doesn't take much with the rules are today to get up to the 50. So now you've eliminated at least 2 punts and probably 2 punt returns. So there's 4 plays gone, and then you take away those kickoffs that, just run in for touchbacks. And all of a sudden you've dropped from 22 plays to 7 or 8 or 9 or something like that. And that I don't like when I watch it. When I talk to special teams coaches today, I explain to them that their biggest roles are in this day and age is they have to win situations. Be smart.
Mm-hmm.
Don't lose a situation. I'm a good friend of mine coaches special teams for the Rams. And last year, I want to kill him a little bit because he didn't do it. But last year they're getting ready to play Detroit. They're playing Detroit. And I was talking to him. I said, Joe, Detroit can't beat you guys. I mean, you could play backwards and you're going to beat Detroit last year. I think Detroit's better this year. I said, Joe, I said, so get ready. Because if I was Detroit, I would try anything against you. Well, they ran a fake punt. They onside kicked and got it. And they ran a 2 fake punts and they got them all. So they got them 3 times. I'd have just walked out of the stadium, gone out, jumped in his Pacific Ocean. That happened to me. But, you have to win the situation. You got to know what people can do to beat you. You have to understand that, and these are the things that are important today. It doesn't, if Buffalo, the last time they played, let's go back to their last game. If the last time they played, when they had to kick off after they went ahead, if they put the ball in play with a line drive type kick or a hard squib, the clock runs down and Kansas City can't win the game. So they win the game. So there's a special teams play that they completely blew. I'm watching it and I'm thinking they're going to win the game. I was excited because I kind of liked them, just from being an opponent of us all those years when I was at Miami or New York. And all of a sudden I see him kick off for a touchback. And I went, oh my goodness gracious. You didn't take a
game
second
definitely
off
changed.
the clock. Now you've given him a chance, and that killed him. So that's when I watch it tonight, those are the things that I get disappointed in, but I still like the game. I love the competition and I like watching a lot of it.
Coach, you're not that far removed from coaching, and you obviously alluded to your short tenure there in New Orleans, but that was a hell of a team that you walked into, and you obviously turned that situation around. But obviously that was like a Super Bowl contending, probably should have gotten to or won a Super Bowl.
Sure.
When you look at that team,
they brought me in.
When you look at that team,
no, I don't mean that disrespectfully.
Sure.
Let me explain. Sean Payton called me. I didn't know Sean. I never met him. And he said, Mike, we think we're a darn good team. He said, but our special teams, he said, something's just not right. That we're not hitting on any cylinders. He said, we need help. He said, we think we can win it all. So I said, okay. I didn't know a soul in the building. And I went halfway through the year. Now, when I walked in there, they were ranked 31st. And when I left, we were first. So I helped them. And it was fun. I loved that team. They were great guys. Drew Brees, Sean Payton's a great coach. Michael Thomas was playing. Back then he led the league in receptions. It was a lot of fun. It was just a fun place to go, and I loved it. So great experience.
When you look at that team that fell a little bit short, and then the 2009 or 2010 team, does one of them maybe hurt a little bit more than the other, or they both stink?
They both hurt. I think, with New Orleans, it was such a, Drew Brees and Sean Payton, that they were the all-stars there. I helped build a part of their team that hadn't been very good and gave them a chance to help win it. But if I have to pick a team that really does hurt, I think it's the Jets, because I watched it develop over such a long time, and I love the type of team that we were. So that one, but they're all hurt. That last crazy, the play up in Minnesota, that just killed me.
Yeah.
remember Minnesota beat us and went to the next level. And then, of course, the non-call in the championship game against the Rams,
Oof.
everybody in the world, I mean, guys that lived in outskirts of China knew that was a bad call. It just was, one of those. Those were tough, but I don't know that those Jet teams that we marched in there and fought so hard. I just believed that we would have, that we could have won those. The thing that I was disappointed in though is that we just didn't keep it going like that. But I thought we can keep this going because we can keep this going. This type of team, we're not an all-star team, but so the Jets were the ones that I feel the worst about. But some of those games, I know I made a mistake in the one game. I didn't exactly play a thing the right way that I should have, and so it still wakes me up in the middle of the night. Crazy.
True. Coach, bringing it back to the book, and again, for everybody, figure it out wherever books are sold. It's great. I love it. I read it cover to cover. It's jam-packed with stories surrounding perseverance. Beyond the football details, which you have high accolades in. Was your ultimate goal to provide inspiration to the readers when you sat down? Like, was that a theme that you kept coming back to when you sat down to write the book?
No, I actually did not. And I'll tell you why. I'm proud that it has come out that way to a degree, but I think a lot of things that I went through, particularly say health-wise, I think I'm proud of what I was able to do, but I don't think it was any more than what people do all over this country every single day. Everyone, none of us get a hall pass. You don't get to go through life with a hall pass. At the end of time, they're probably not going to send a chariot down and you jump on and ride it back up. That's probably not going to happen. And you got to fight your way through it. And so, I had to go through some of that stuff when, I was young and I didn't expect it. I was in great health and condition. I didn't smoke. I drank very little. All of a sudden I have bone cancer. I mean, how does that happen? Where did this come from? And then I have to I'm going to keep working through it. So, but I had great help, great family support, friends support, business support. And part of the time, thank goodness, I was in New York and I was able to rely on the people at Sloan Kettering. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah.
They're just as good as it is. And I was so fortunate to be part of a lot of that. And, but yeah, I think if anything comes out of it, there's a realism that life goes on. I think I was pretty proud. The doctor from Sloan Kettering, he's probably the most brilliant. He's the top orthopedic surgeon in the world, period, in the world. A guy named John Healy. He's the man. And he called me a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago, and he told me he read the book. He said, I read this and I really liked it. He said, you did a good job. And he said, my favorite part, and he thanked me because I was pretty gracious to him, obviously, but he said, the point that you made about don't let an illness change who you are. You're the same person. Wow. You may not look the same. You don't exactly feel the same, but you don't let it define who you are. And he said, and you did a great job of that. He said, I used to have to go out, when I first got in the league, people don't know this. I went to combine my first 3 years and I threw in the receiver drills in the combine. I threw the ball. Now they see me as this old guy walking around with a cane. I didn't always do that in my life. I was pretty athletic. And so, but here I'm walking with this big leg brace and a cane. And I used to think to myself, that guy on the other side of the field, Mike, he doesn't have one of those. He don't have to walk with a cane, but you're going to kick his ass today. he should go get one because he's going to need one afterwards.
He's going to need it after. Yeah.
That's the attitude I had. That's how I felt. And I wanted my players to feel the same way, that we just had that attitude that we were tough and we were going to make it. And so I don't know if that came out of the book. I had kind of a tough thing. I grew up in just an average little neighborhood. You wouldn't drive your car in the neighborhood I grew up in, trust me. And some of the stuff that happened to me when I was young, my first trip to college, I mean, here I'm in Pittsburgh and, I get up my dad, we didn't have a lot of money. And he said, Mike, we never had any vacations. He said, this will be a good chance for you to see a lot of the country. So he gave me a bus ticket. So I rode from Pittsburgh to Laramie, Wyoming on a bus, 36 hours. And I got off the bus and went to practice. So that was my life. That's the life that I led.
Coach, the book is obviously it's jam packed with stories and relationships, and without going into, I guess, too much detail, but one story that I really enjoyed, and I think it obviously comes to light this week with the 21st anniversary of 9/11 here on Sunday.
Right.
You were obviously part of that Jets team that first week,
Yes.
coming back after 9/11, and just kind of take us through the emotions of that situation, and what it was like kind of being around that group of guys in that particular city when those were going on.
Well, first of all, it was my first year there in New York. I had just come off of the Dolphins in that last year, probably the best special teams year that any special teams group ever had in NFL history. I'll argue that with anybody. I mean, we were ridiculously good. So I go up to the Jets. My first game at the Jets, we give up a punt return. I don't think I ever gave up a punt return. I mean, I was ready to throw up. So I couldn't. I'm not feeling real good. I'm feeling like this is a very unauspicious debut, to say the least. And I'm sitting in my office, and the phone rings for my mother and father, and they retired and lived in Pittsburgh. And they said, "Mike, what's going on in New York? There's some kind of crash. It's a small plane." That's what everybody thought. And so I put it on like everybody else. And of course, we all saw everything that happened. And then you could walk outside and see the smoke. So it was right in our backyard. It was right in our faces. And I got a call that night. I was working on my game plan because we were supposed to go out to play Oakland. I got a call from a guy named Mark Hatley. He was personnel director with the Packers. And he was asking me, he was a friend, and he was asking me about a player. And then we got talking about, what had happened. And he said, "Are you guys ready to play?" He said, because, for everything we hear, and that Ron Wolf, their general manager, their great general manager, was talking with Tagliabue, and that the president wanted the NFL to play. They wanted them to play. He said, "So, Mike, you better get ready because you guys are going to play." Well, the next day, Thursday, when the guys were there, you could just tell their hearts weren't in it. They just didn't want to do it. And so Terry Bradway, who is, as you read in the book, is certainly not my favorite, but he did a good job that day. He did a really good job. He did, credit where it's deserved. And he got the players together and he said, "Look, just sit down, talk this over, and give us a decision. Because we're going to have to know." Because they had a conference call. Because Woody was down at the city and they had a conference call with the league. And our guys, it was the meeting was run by well, I wasn't in there, but we had got up and left as coaches. But, with Kevin Mawai and, of course, Vinny Testaverde and Curtis Martin. And when we came back, they said, "Coach, we just cannot go. We're not going to get on that plane. If we have to lose a week's salary, we're going to do it. But we can't go. We're just not going to do it." So, Terry told Woody, and I'm sure that the word got out. And the next thing I know, I heard, and this is what I heard, whether it's true, I can't tell you, that the Giants basically said, "Yeah, we're not going either." So now all of a sudden you've got the two New York teams. And I firmly believe, guys, and I don't know if I can't ever testify if I know, but that the New York Jets are the team responsible. And America needed a timeout.
Yeah.
We needed a timeout.
Definitely.
We didn't need to play that week. And everybody followed suit. Baseball followed suit. Golf followed suit. College football. Everybody took a week.
Bigger than sports.
Back.
Yep.
And we needed that. And I firmly believe it was the New York Jets that did it. And I give those guys every bit of credit in the world because they deserve it. They just, and then we went up to New England that next week. And, of course, we beat New England. And really, they should erect a statue up there to Mo Lewis because when he gets Bledsoe, and then Bledsoe, then they brought in that little kid called Tom Brady.
Who's that?
Who's this? I never forget walking off the field, and I was saying to Herman, I said, "Herman, who the hell's that skinny quarterback? That kid's pretty good." I said, he looked pretty. Now we won, we beat them, but I said, that guy's pretty good. And then of course we came on at the end and we beat we beat Oakland. And then we both got in the playoffs, and they went on and won the Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl that year. But I think the whole emotion. I remember we went down on the bus on a Saturday down to Ground Zero, and they wouldn't let us in because of some type of something had registered that it was a little dangerous, so we couldn't go. So we went up and we unloaded trucks. We helped unload trucks, and we did a coolest thing. Our guys, they had these big trucks, went into these different businesses and including a bar. And they got everybody out. And they got everybody just in New York was in line with us as players and coaches unloading the trucks. We had women. It didn't matter. We got guys out of bars. We said, "No, bring your beer. Come on, let's go." And we just unloaded all these trucks. We just, we had a big line and we just passed stuff along. And if you were walking down the street, we'd say, "Wait a minute, come on, jump in here, help us out." And it was a cool thing that we did. It was fun, and it helped. I don't know how much it helped, but I think it helped start to get things headed back in the right direction. So I think the New York Jets, they're a small part of it. They were first class. They did a great job. I'll always respect what they did.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the cooler stories here in Figure It Out, your latest book. I just had one kind of question for you. In going through this book, and for you guys who are going to pick this book up and read it, I couldn't highly recommend it more. I think from a fan perspective, we watch you and we've seen you throughout the years, and you've never been shy of being a straight shooter, and you've always said things how they were, and if a guy made a mistake, you let them know it. You kind of alluded to it in your last story. You didn't have the best relationship with Terry Bradway, but when you made the decision to write the book and kind of bring your relationships with these behind the scenes things to light with different GMs and coaches, did you ever kind of have any hesitation of like kind of putting that out in the public? Because as fans, we're enjoying finding out all this stuff that we kind of never knew about, and it's kind of one of the cool elements. How did that come about when you put the book together?
It's a good question. It's a good point. I did, yes. There was I'm sure you read the part of, I had a good relationship with them, and it very much came to a crummy end with Bill Parcells.
Yeah.
And he wrote, I was out. I was supposed to be completely out. When I had that surgery, even the doctor that did it didn't think I'd be able to come back. But for some reason, it healed up, and here I feel fine. So I said, "Well, I'm going to come back, not with the Jets. I just thought I was going to go to another team." Actually, Green Bay had reached out to me, and I thought I was going to end up in Green Bay because they were talking to me about coming back up there. And anyway, I decided that I would go visit some teams during training camp. I talked to the Tampa and Jacksonville, and I called Bill, and I went over, and my friend of mine went over and visited with them. Now, mistake that I made, and I made the mistake because I was under contract, even though I was completely gone from the Jets. I wasn't even in the press guide. They hired another guy, and I was just out. But the fact that I was under contract, I'm not allowed to be at another team's camp. But I didn't know that. Now, Bill didn't know it, or he wouldn't have let me be there. But anyway, he and I sat in a golf cart and watched practice. That's what we did. And I went home. I thanked him. I wrote him a note. So I get back, and a couple of weeks later, the Jets signed Brett Favre. Now they get excited, and they just didn't believe in their special teams coach, and they talked me into coming back. They offered me a ton of money, which I didn't accept. I wouldn't let them fire the coach. I made them keep him, and I made them work with me, and I went back. Well, Bill got upset about it, and he wrote a letter to the NFL, and he called me. Now I have a copy of that letter, and I was tempted to publish it. But that's one of those things sometimes that you just don't need to do. And I didn't do that. I didn't do it. I'm glad I didn't do it. But my description of what he did, I'm going to stick with it because that's what it was. And he shouldn't have done that. Because the one thing I didn't do, I didn't go over there to cheat. And I sat with him the whole time. And that's not fair. He should have never said that. And now the NFL, they came in and examined the whole thing. I was investigated. And they found me complete. They said, "Oh, Mike," they said, "go back and do whatever you want. Don't worry about what he has to say." And so they kind of exonerated me, or whatever you want to call it. But then the other time, though, to answer your question another way, I would, after I'd write parts, I have a girl that I go out with down here, my girlfriend, and I would call her up sometimes. And I'd say, "Let me read this to you at night," and I'd read her maybe a couple pages. I'd say, "What do you think?" And every once in a while, she'd say, "I think you got to dial that down a little bit." So I called her to dial down because she said, "Can you dial that down just a little bit?" And I'd redo it, and I'd read it. She said, "Yeah, that sounds better." So I did have some help sometimes, and I had to dial down a little bit. So I'm kind of glad I did that. But if you're going to tell stories, just tell it the way it is. I mean, whether I'm very critical of myself. And I was very critical of myself in the book when I made mistakes. And I'm
Mhm.
not afraid to admit it. We all make them. And so someone else makes them, live up to it. Too bad.
Absolutely. Well, the book is action packed with them. It's packed to the gills, and like you said, inside stories and behind the scenes stuff that you guys probably would never know unless you read the book. So I encourage everybody to go out there, pick up, figure it out
You
everywhere
can get it
books are
on
sold.
Amazon, probably the easiest.
Yeah,
Either Amazon, just contact Amazon. You can get it either hard copy, the soft cover, or you can get it on an iCopy. It'll come right to your computer, or even the audio. A lot
yeah,
of people like and I
Yeah.
recorded it. I spent 3 weeks in a recording studio working on it, and I kind of I think we did a nice job. So that's the either or that or through Mascot Publishing, and it'll deliver it right to your house. So yeah, I think people will enjoy it, and I'm very, very proud of it.
That's awesome, Coach. One final question before we let you go. I know it's kickoff's coming up soon, just under almost an hour. How would you define a successful 2022 Jets campaign? Doesn't have to be terms of wins and losses. Just what do they need to show to classify this season successful?
Being in, right to the very end, nearly every game. Maybe
Mhm.
not every game, but nearly every game. There'll be a couple
Mhm.
games they won't be, but I want to see them fight being in the ball game. You come in the fourth quarter, you're not going to turn the TV off because they got a chance
Yeah.
to do it. That's what I think, and I think it. I think they can. I'll be disappointed if they're not right at 500 or maybe a little above or a little below in that vicinity. I think
Mhm.
would be pretty good for them. And really, if they can weather this early storm, just weather the early storm a little bit, they might surprise us all at the end. That's my goal. That's what I'm rooting for. But to me, but I want to see them fighting in every game. I don't want to see a lot of penalties. I don't want to see turnovers.
Yeah.
I want to see good, sharp, tough play. I'd like to see a realm of hitting, where you see them really a physical football team. That to
Sure.
me, everybody can do that. You may not want to do it. You can do that. They can do that.
Mhm.
And that to me, I see that, I'm going to really get excited.
Awesome.
Well, Coach, it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. I can't thank you enough for just taking a few minutes out of your busy schedule. I know you have a lot going on this time of year, so thank you so much for joining us and hopping on the podcast just to chat and share some stories from your illustrious career. And if, like we said, figure it out. It's out where everywhere books are sold now. We couldn't encourage it more to go out there and pick it up. Coach, thank you so much,
Absolutely.
and enjoy kickoff tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to enjoy it. Yeah, thanks, guys. I had some of the best years of my life were right on that wall behind you. I absolutely had a ball. That was a great time in my life and my career. I loved pretty much nearly every minute. At the end, I'd like to jump off the bridge a little bit with some of it. I'm gonna take 2 guys with me though. But that was tremendous time. I loved the play. I loved it. I mean, to come into that stadium back in those days, incredible feeling. I'll always be very proud. So I'm happy to come on with you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. We cherished the time, and we loved having you here. We obviously one of the more unforgettable guys that's been part of this franchise,
Oh
and
yeah.
we're just hoping to get back to and reliving those years of all that success that you guys had, and we're just hoping to get back to that point soon. And so, like I said, thank you very much, Coach, and enjoy the rest of your night and enjoy the game tonight.
Okay, let us know. We'll come on another time, anytime with you guys. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you very much,
Definitely.
Coach.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
All right.
Bye
Good
now.
night.
Good night.